If aggregate demand shifts, then if it increases, you'll get an increase in GDP, but an increase in the prices. But you'll at least have the good of greater output and therefore lower unemployment. If it decreases, then you will have lower GDP and therefore higher unemployment, but at least the prices will go down. When short-run aggregate supply shifts, you'll run into a situation in which the new equilibrium will be at a lower GDP, which means there will be less output and higher unemployment, and you'll get the problem of higher prices. There's a combination of both higher unemployment and higher prices. This situation of higher prices caused by a shift in short-run aggregate supply is called cost-push inflation. It's different from demand pull inflation because the higher per unit production costs is what caused the short-run aggregate supply curve to decrease. So that's what caused the inflation. The situation of having both high unemployment and high prices has been termed stagflation. It's a combination of two words, stagnant and inflation. If short-run aggregate supply were to increase, then we are going to experience in the economy a new equilibrium point in which there is higher GDP and lower unemployment and lower prices. This was the goal of supply-side economics, was to increase short-run aggregate supply, and this new way of dealing with the economy came about during the Reagan administration and is part of what is called Reaganomics. The long-run aggregate supply curve is based on the assumption that in the long run, the economy will always return back to potential real GDP, but at various price levels. And to explain this, if the economy was in a problem like recession, then because of this recession, their actual GDP is less than potential real GDP. That's the definition of being in a recession. And so this lower output means that there is higher unemployment. If businesses are not making as much output, they don't need as many workers, so they fire people, and the unemployment rate will be higher than the natural rate of unemployment. The assumption is if you do nothing about this economy, then in the long run, over time, those unemployed people will eventually become desperate enough to accept wage decreases. They will accept a pay cut, go back to work for lower pay, and that decreases businesses' per unit production costs, which will cause short-run aggregate supply to increase, and it will continue to increase until the equilibrium real GDP reaches potential GDP again. It'll just be at a different price level. If there was a problem of demand pull inflation, the price level is higher than the non-inflationary price level. These higher prices will cause, over time, workers to notice that the things that they buy, their groceries and other consumption expenditures, will be higher in price, and they will therefore ask their bosses for a raise. And because the workplaces will overall want to sustain a higher level of output and not lose workers, because that would mean a loss in output, they will overall give higher wages around the economy. This higher wages is going to result in higher per unit production costs, which shifts the short-run aggregate supply curve to the left. It will continue to decrease until they reach potential GDP, and there will be higher prices in the economy. Overall, the effect is going to be that potential GDP will be reached at various price levels in the long run, and so the long-run aggregate supply curve is a vertical curve that falls at the potential real GDP level. When you draw the graphs for this, if you had an economy that was achieving non-inflationary full employment, that means that the short-run aggregate supply curve, the aggregate demand curve, and the long-run aggregate supply curve all intersect in the same spot. To draw a recession, the short-run aggregate supply curve and aggregate demand curve would be intersecting at an equilibrium point that falls to the left of the long-run aggregate supply curve. And to draw demand pole inflation, you would show the intersection of AD and short-run aggregate supply falling to the right of potential real GDP. Because long-run aggregate supply falls at potential real GDP, the only thing that will shift the long-run aggregate supply curve is if the level of potential real GDP were to increase or decrease.